overview of the book of First Chronicles and the analysis of the book of First Chronicles. Author is uncertain, but others thought it had been edited by Ezra. The word chronicle, or chronicles in plural, it means a factual written account of an important or historical event in the order of their occurrences. Example, we say a vast chronicle of Spanish history. So what actually went on, historical events that actually happened with facts. Okay? So here we see First and Second Chronicles. First and Second Chronicles are one book in the Hebrew Bible. Okay? But the book might have been divided by the authors into two. Date written, most likely edited between 450 BC and 430 BC, though probably written during or shortly after the captivity. And then it may be regarded as a supplement to the book of First and Second Samuel and First and Second Kings. So it's a supplement to the book of First and Second Samuel and then First and Second Kings. Some of the historical descriptions are almost identical with those of the preceding books. And then we go to distinctive features. The books of Samuel and Kings refer to events in both kingdoms. In other words, Northern Kingdom being Israel and then Southern Kingdom being Judah. Okay? So the book of Samuel and Kings refer to events in both kingdoms. Whereas Chronicles deals mostly exclusively with the history of Judah. So the book of Chronicles, points or narrows to the history of Judah without Israel when they were divided kingdom. Okay, the purpose of the book of First Chronicles is, it's one book, but it was divided. So the purpose is to provide a spiritual perspective of events from David's reign to the decree of Cyrus in 538 BC, and to illustrate the absolute importance of national and personal worship. Okay, that is what it focuses. Okay, for national and personal worship. To whom written? It was written to the nation of Israel. Main theme, the sovereignty of God. It can be seen in chapter 4, verse 9 to 10, chapter 5, verse 20, chapter 11, verse 14, chapter 12, verse 18, First Chronicles chapter 14, verse 2, chapter 10, verse 14, chapter 14, verse 2, and then verse 10, and then verse 14 to 15. The key words in this book is Davidic covenant. Davidic covenant. That's the key word. Key verses is First Chronicles chapter 17, verse 11 to 14. Okay? Notable passages. I will explain it further as I go, as I keep on, teaching and reading. Okay? The notable passages in First Chronicles is Jabez's prayer, as we all know, which happened in First Chronicles chapter 4, verse 10. I think it starts from verse 7 all the way to 10. And then another notable passage is number 2, David pours out the water from the well of Bethlehem, which is chapter 11, verse 17 to 19. And then David's psalm, some of the psalms that David wrote, David's psalm. It also talks about it from chapter 16, verse 7 to verse 36. And then the fourth notable passage is description of David's choir and orchestra. Okay, description of David's choir and orchestra, which is chapter 25. And then the last notable passage is David's last blessing and prayer, which is chapter 29, verse number 10 through 19. Chapter 29, verse 10 through 19. So let me go through a quick summary here so that you understand the book of Chronicles very well. Okay? The book actually summarizes all the Jewish scriptures. It starts with genealogy all the way from the word Adam. So he starts talking from Adam, and then it's going to end with the return of Israel from exile. So we're going to see why the book, narrates that. So the book will summarize beginning of, man all the way till, when Israel went into exile and then came out of exile. The hope of the Messianic king and the future of the temple. You see, the book of Chronicles, it narrows into that that aspect. It's going to talk much more about the kingship, okay, through David to the actual king in the person of Jesus Christ, the Messiah, okay? And then it's also going to talk much about the priesthood, the temple. So these are the two main key factors that we consider from the book of First Chronicles, okay? So the hope of the Messianic king, and then the future of the temple, okay? And then it emphasizes more on preparation of the temple by David. And then David is compared to Moses, because Moses is a type of Christ. Moses, in the physical form, was like a savior who saved the children of Israel from captivity all the way to the promised land. So it compels David, and then it is going to mention the word New David as the king, representing Jesus Christ. In other words, that the temple and everything is being prepared for Jesus Christ, as the Messianic king. Okay, he's going to be a Messiah, and he's going to be the king of the Jews. That's why the first book, Matthew, talks about the kingship of Jesus Christ as a Messiah among the Jewish tribe. So that's where it takes us. Okay, so it's compared to Moses in planning for the temple for the future king in the person of Jesus Christ as a Messianic king, and also as the new David, the king. Okay, the line of David and David to the Messianic king and the descendants of Aaron who serves at the temple, in the aspect of the priesthood. Okay, so this is the main thing that the book talks about. It starts with David. It starts from Adam. They're going to talk a little bit about it from chapter 1 all the way to chapter 9. It talks about genealogy, and then it's going to shift, to David. So it's not going to stress much more about David's failure, David's sins, deliberate sins. No, it's going to talk about the good aspect, representing David, leading the line of Judah to Jesus Christ. and then also the Aaronic, priesthood to Jesus himself. So that's how the book goes. Okay, synopsis. Let's go through the division here. Synopsis. It's the book. It's into two parts. Okay, I'll say 2 to 3 parts. Okay, let's take it 2 parts. Okay, so it's going to talk about historical records and early monarchy. The kingship. And then also it's going to talk about the reign of David. And everything is pointing to Christ, okay? So synopsis, the first part of it, historic records and early monarchy, okay? So it's going to talk about, it's divided into genealogy, chapter 1 to chapter 9. First Chronicles chapter 1 to chapter 9 is going to, talk from Adam all the way to the kings, okay? And then chapter 2, it also talk about overthrow and death of Saul, okay, which is chapter 10. And then after that, it jumps to the second part, which is the reign of David, okay. So first part, number 1, is going to talk about his accession to the throne and the capture of Jerusalem, his mighty men and armies, which is chapter 11 and chapter 12. And then number 2, because I'll talk about the whole chapters again, a summary. Okay, and then the second part, it talks about his mistake in attempting to transport the ark. The ark was on a new cart. He was trying to transport it, but God didn't want it the way. I mean, the king's son, the high priest's sons who were driving the cart, or driving it, or they didn't know much about it. Okay, so it's a mistake that David made, but sometimes God will use our mistakes into his purpose. Okay, so his accession to the throne, the capture of Jerusalem, his mighty men and armies, and then number 2, his mistake in attempting to transport the ark on a new cart, which is chapter 13. The third part is his victory over the Philistines, chapter 14, and then the ark is brought to Jerusalem, chapter 15. David offers praise to God and great festival. This section is not really going to talk about, my notes. It doesn't actually talk much about Obed-Edom, but it's going to be part of it, okay? So fourth part, the ark brought to Jerusalem, chapter 15. David offers praise to God and great festival of rejoicing, chapter 16. The king's desire to build a temple for the Lord, but was denied, chapter 17. Great military victories, chapter 18, 19, and 20. And then the sinful census. As we all know, there were certain things God didn't want David to do, but he did it. And it brought a lot of, punishment to the people of Israel, which is chapter 21. And then number 9, the preparation of materials for the building of the temple and the charge to Solomon, which is chapter 22. And then number 10, the further organization of the affairs of the kingdom, chapter 23 all the way to chapter 27. And then 11, the 11th part is being divided. As I said, the second part is about the reign of David. It's divided into all the way to 12 parts. Okay, the 11th part, David last charge to the people of Israel, and then also to his son Solomon. And then Solomon is made king, okay, which is chapter 28 and chapter 29. And then the last part, which is the 12th division, okay, the 12th part is the death of David, which is chapter 29 verse 28. Okay, so the prominent people are David, who is the central character. Is it because the key word is Davidic covenant? So it talks much more about David, but it transcends. It goes beyond that, leading the tribe of Judah through David all the way, and Solomon all the way to Jesus Christ. Okay, so that's how it is. Okay, so prominent people, David is the central character for the history of his life. And then number 2, other key people include Saul, Uzzah, and Solomon. There are many, but we can't bring all of them here. Okay, so let me do another quick summary here, and then we go through the actual summary, chapter 1 all the way to chapter 29. Okay, the book summarizes all the Jewish scriptures, starting with the word Adam. I've already talked about that, and ends with the return of Israel from exile, the hope of the Messianic king, and the future of the temple. I'm doing it again so that your mind will go there. Other than that, many people study it, they get confused. Okay, the hope of the Messianic king and the future of the temple, and so it emphasized more on preparation of the temple by David. And even though God denied him, but God allowed Solomon to build it. Okay, and David was compared to like Moses in planning for the temple for the future king in the person of Jesus Christ as a messianic king of the people of of Jewish people. Okay, and then he's given a name called New David. Okay, Jesus is given a name New David. Okay, then the line of Judah and David to the messianic king and descendants of Aaron, who serves as the temple, which is the priesthood. So it's about the kingship leading to Christ, and then the priesthood leading to Jesus himself. Because Jesus is a king, he's a priest. Jesus is a king, he's a priest, and he's a prophet. Jesus carries these three offices that God used in the Old Testament to work with his people. Always God needed a king, God needed a king, and then God needed a prophet, and then God needed what again? A priest. So Jesus carries the three. Okay. So summary of First Chronicles. I'm going to do it so fast here. Okay. It talks about chapter 1, the family of Adam, and then to Seth, and then to Abraham, the family of Ishmael, the family of Keturah. Okay, and then the family of Isaac, the family of Seir. Okay, the kings of Edom. Okay, the line of Judah and David to the Messianic king, and the descendants of Aaron who serve as the temple, the priesthood. So the reason I'm repeating this is the actual meaning. This is why the book was written. But if you're not careful, you will just you'll be like, how is just talking about, why is it bringing Adam and all these old patriots whose name already have been mentioned. So that is where the book is taking you and I. Okay, so this chapter 2 is going to talk about the family of Israel from Judah to David, and then the family of Hezron, the family of Zeramel, okay, the family of Caleb, okay, and then chapter 3 talks about the family of David, the family of Solomon, the family of Jeconiah. Chapter 4 is going to talk about the family of Judah, the family of Simeon, okay. Chapter 5, the family of Reuben, the family of Gad, the family of Manasseh, which took the eastern section of the land. Chapter 6 is going to talk about the family of Levi, musicians in the house of the Lord, okay, because Levites, they are his tribe were the ones who were actually, playing that role as Levites, okay, from Levi's family. So musicians in the house of the Lord, the family of Aaron, dwelling places of the Levites, because God told them, don't give them any place. I will choose a place for them, okay? And then chapter 7 is going to talk about the family of Issachar, the family of Benjamin, the family of Naphtali, the family of Manasseh, which took the west of the promised land, the family of Ephraim, the family of Asher. Chapter 8 talks about the family tree of King Saul of Benjamin, as we all know. Chapter 9, dwellers in Jerusalem, the priests at Jerusalem, the Levites at Jerusalem, the Levite gatekeepers, other Levite responsibilities, the family of King Saul. Okay, chapter 10, some of them will keep on repeating. It's of chapter 10, tragic end of Saul and his sons. The war that happened. Already God has said he has already demoted him. So Saul died with his son. He had good sons, but they all, because of bad fatherly role. Okay, so tragic end of Saul and his sons. And then chapter 11, David made king over all Israel. Okay, because they made David was anointed, I think 2 to 3 times. Okay, he was king within a certain place because they didn't want Saul to go after him initially. Okay, so David made king over Israel, the city of David, the mighty men of David. I've talked about this before. The growth of David's army, chapter 12, David's army at Hebron, the ark brought from Kirjath Jearim, okay, by David and his people. Chapter 14, David established at Jerusalem, okay, which was called, as we all know, city of David, just to worship God. It created kind of monument, raised altars, as a place to worship God. Okay, the Philistines defeated. Chapter 15, the ark brought to Jerusalem. Chapter 16, the ark placed in the tabernacle. David's song of thanksgiving, regular worship maintained. Chapter 17, God's covenant with David. Chapter 18, David's further conquest. David's administration. Chapter 19, the Ammonites and the Syrians were defeated. Chapter 20, First Chronicles chapter 20, Rabbah is conquered, Philistine giants destroyed. Chapter 21, the census of Israel. Okay, the census of Israel and Judah, like I just talked about it. It was sinful. God didn't want David to do that. Chapter 22, David prepares to build the temple. Chapter 22, David prepares to build the temple. Chapter 23, the divisions of the Levites. Chapter 24, the divisions of the priest, other Levites. Chapter 25, the musicians. Chapter 26, the gatekeepers, who were also the treasuries and other duties. Okay. Chapter 27, the military divisions, leaders of tribes, other state officials. Chapter 28, Solomon instructed to build the temple. Chapter 29, offerings for building the temple. And then David's praise, David prays to God. So may the Lord richly bless you. That's the end of the book of First Chronicles. God bless you.